Good morning, everyone. We're not quite ready to start just yet. It'll be another minute or so. We have a few people who are logged in, not quite signed up on the audio, so we'll give them another minute. Okay, I think we're just about ready to get started. So thanks for joining us this morning for the webinar on Turbocharged. This is really a tool that will help you stop producing schedules no one reads. The game plan this morning is going to be to record the webinar, and of course feel free to chat in any questions that you might have. Joining us this morning as well is Santosh Bhatt. He, of course, is one of the co-founders of Turbocharged. He's been working in planning scheduling for over 17 years, and of course knows firsthand how hard it is to get people to understand what a Gantt chart is really saying. He teamed up with Russell Johnson, lead developer of Burtmaster, to bring us a tool that is really great, simple to use, and that's the solution I'm going to show you this morning in Turbocharged. Of course, I am Nicole Jordan. I'm founder and CEO of Emerald Associates, and I get to say that I've also worked in the business for quite a long time, longer than Santosh, unfortunately, I have to admit, and really have had a great joy at working with clients all around the world and in many different industries. And we're always looking for tools that will help us help our clients make their lives easier and, of course, make their schedules, their project controls team, and their project management experience much better. So why is it so hard, really, to get a great schedule? You know, we've been using Gantt charts, we've been using scheduling systems for many years, well over 50 years at this point. But no matter what you do, the team does not seem to want to follow that plan. You can meet, you can do working schedule sessions, you can review the schedules. No matter what you seem to do, they still go off and do their own thing and go down unexpected roads. So really, why does this happen? Well, I think really, although our tool, our general tool that we've used for so long is a Gantt chart, it's very complicated. What we're trying to get them to do is figure out where to go when there's so many different pieces of information that they've got to try and understand. We're really trying to get them to understand the who, the what, the when, the where, how, and why. And it's not easy for them to understand all that in a simple Gantt chart, especially if you're looking at a project that spans a large area, lots of crews, lots of different locations, and a very complex timeline. So what we end up doing is we end up meeting and meeting and meeting to try and communicate and understand what the schedule is showing, even though we're really not sure exactly how to get where we need to go. So this is a struggle. It's an ongoing struggle. And when the team's not clear where they need to go and how to navigate, they try and find their own way to get there. So one of the things that they struggle with, of course, is to see where they're supposed to be, exactly when, which teams are supposed to be there. Very difficult on a Gantt chart. So of course we try and come up with different ways to highlight this. We put different colors, we put different filters, we use codes, we put notes on. We try everything we can using the tools we have, and we fall short in most cases. So really what we're looking for is a way to make this easier. How can we make our schedules clearer? How can we make sure that our team can follow and be where we need them to be at the right time? So what I wanted to show you is how does that work? How can Turbocharged really help fill that gap and make your schedules much more usable by the whole team. So really the key here is we're looking at a visual. So we're looking at moving away from too many pages, and usually more like way too many pages, to something much more simple, one page, nice visuals, much clearer, so that they can understand exactly what they're supposed to be doing, rather than trying to sift through a big, huge Gantt chart. We're really trying to get you from a place where it's very hard to understand, where you got lots of meetings, to a place where it's much more simple, much clearer. So really, it's a very, very simple process to work with Turbocharged, which is what makes it so fantastic. You use your regular scheduling tool, and what we do is we add a few pieces of information. So we're really coding the type of work, and we're coding the location, start and finish. Again, keep using what you're used to using, even if it's Excel. And what we do is we're going to sync that up, push it into Turbocharged. Now we have a few different methods to do that. We can sync right off the P6 database, or you can always do an import of an XCR. Okay, so also very simple way to get that data across. Once you're in Turbocharged, what you're really going to rely on is some templates. Templates that will standardize your colors, your visual graphics, the different highlighting methodology that you're going to use. So very, very simple to add all the highlights and the communication pieces right in Turbocharged. It's a really simple tool, and what that means is you're going to be able to increase and improve your communication across the team. Okay, so what I wanted to do was actually jump in, and I'm going to do a few scenarios. There's many more scenarios, of course, that you can do with Turbocharged, and we're going to look at both vertical and horizontal time, location, type charts. So the first example I wanted to use is a rail project. I'm going to go ahead and open it in P6, give you the lay of the land, and then we'll work it both in P6 and in Turbocharged. Okay, so I'm going to have both tools open. I'm going to navigate between Turbocharged and P6 and work with one project and move it back and forth between the two tools. So I'm going to go ahead and open the first example, and it's a P6 schedule. So pretty common P6 schedule. I'm going to open up a layout. Oops, sorry, didn't want to save it. Here we go. Pretty common example where we've got a rail project that's going to be undertaken. We've got our design work, of course, and then our site work. Now, when you're looking at your schedule and trying to understand what is going to be going on the job site, you may not need to time locate every aspect of the project scope, and you don't have to. You do not have to have all the activities that you have in your P6 schedule come into your Turbocharged. It's completely up to you. So let me explain the sort of data that we need to add to any of our scheduling systems, in this example P6, to make it talk to Turbocharged. So I've got here a start point and an end point. These are user-defined fields. I've got a code called, or a value here called shape. Again, we're using user-defined fields across the board. And filtering, so we can have some additional tagging to do some filtering. So this is going to let us bring the data into Turbocharged and use that data to obviously position the activities, as well as the shape code is going to be used for the coloring and the visual styling of the work. Now, of course, above and beyond that, we're going to need the dates. because we're going to want to know when the work is taking place, not just the where and the what. So the dates are going to come across as well. And we'll also be able to capture things like whether the task is critical and whatnot. Okay, so I'm going to show you that in a minute in Turbocharged. So, you know, typically what we try and do in P6 is we might try and filter, we might try and color code these bars. So we go to great lengths to try and use P6 to communicate this, but the problem is it's really not its strong point. So this is where using the two tools will work really well for communicating while you're developing the project as well as while you're updating it. So let's take a look at how we actually bring this data into Turbocharged and actually work with it. Okay, so it's quite simple. So you open up Turbocharged, and right now I don't have any project data as of yet. So I can go ahead and ask it to tie up or go read, if you will, my data sitting inside P6. So in this example, this is the first one that I want to go and start working with. So I can open that project and in it comes. So we really can't understand this quite yet. So it comes in without really any visual cues on any of these lines. So you can certainly work through and modify them and come up with your graphical choices, or even easier, we can use some layers. So these are called shape libraries. So the idea here is to template across your company, minimum across your project, the way that you want this data to look on a consistent basis. So rather than starting from scratch, I can just go and grab my template, and I can have more than one kind of template, which is what makes this so nice as well. Okay, so perhaps you have a group that only want to see certain things with certain colors. You can do that sort of thing very easily in Turbocharged. Okay, so I've grabbed my template for my visuals, and in it comes, and now we can work through what we're seeing on the screen. So if we take a look at these big blue area boxes, what we're seeing here is that at about November to April 2018 to 19, we are going to be doing this work. Now, what is this work? I can see it right here very easily. So I can have my cheat sheet right here, and it's telling me that it's rail design. Okay, so that means every single one of these blue boxes is rail design. Okay, so that's great. So I have the when, I have the what, but you can see that I'm missing the where. I don't really understand where the where is. Okay, so I've got that actually here. So that's great. So I know the position, the physical location on the job site where that work is, of course, being designed for in this case. So that's really nice, very helpful, but let's go a step further and let's actually get a visual up there. So we can put an image up there so that I can actually take a look at a diagram that helps me understand where all that work is taking place. Now, when you pull in your visual, your graphic, your image file, it may not align perfectly to what we've seen underneath it, which is my case. So this tunnel is actually needing to align here. That's not a problem. We can scale that image and reshape it so that it's aligning correctly. And it's really quite easy to do. I think it was 265, but let's just take a look. Come on. Is it working? Just a second. Oops, might help if I check the scale. There you go. Okay, so scale the image. I don't have it quite right, so that's okay. I'll just make it a little bit wider so I can, I can get it to line up correctly, and then I won't have to do this again. So this is just a one-time thing that I need to do to set this up properly. Okay, so now I've got it aligned better, and now my scale is coming across a little bit nicer. Okay, so that's good. That's much better. Now, I think in doing that, I think I probably hit this reverse axis. So some of you who were looking probably saw this time scale flip from going from top down to bottom up. And that's also very handy. Depending on how your team prefers to see the flow of work, we can rotate that up or down. Okay. So now I have my chart. Now I have my my work. Let me actually go through what you're actually seeing on the screen. So each one of these is one or many activities that we've pulled in from P6 to create this diagram. This diagram is color-coded by work type, generally, is how you would do it, and or it could be by crew, okay, it could be by contractor. So there's lots of ways to put this together so that you're able to communicate exactly what we're trying to look at, which is who, what, when, where, how, and why. Now, this is not static. I can have it talking to P6 on an ongoing basis. So this is not a tool that I just use once in a while. This is a tool that I can be using regularly throughout the day as I'm building and developing my schedule. Let's look at some of the types of things that you probably do currently in P6 that you can take advantage of in P6 and Turbocharged together. So I'll go back to my P6 schedule. So one of the things that we do a lot when we're building a schedule, of course, is we want to look at the work type. We want to look at where work is being done and what work is going on. So this is about the best we can get when we're looking in a Gantt chart. So I've done a few examples where I've color-coded some of the tasks based on the type of work. And really this is just about the best you can get in a Gantt. And that's why, you know, the need for Turbocharged is so high, and this tool is simple to use. So one of the things that you may be exploring with the project team is some calendaring. So I want to do an example where we're looking at working on the job site and looking at changing the calendar. We're discussing whether we want to go a 5-day a week, or in my example, I'm going to go with a 6-day a week. So I'm going to flip that to another layout. And the only difference in this layout really is that I've got my, I've set a baseline. So I've stored my 5-day a week schedule into a baseline just so I can see what the difference really is going to be if I switch my calendar. Okay, so this may be something that you're doing during the bid when you're trying to figure out your costs, trying to figure out your time frames. So I can easily change that, and I can certainly use my fill down to change that as well. Okay, so we can see certainly some definite change in the timelines. Okay, so that's great, but do I really understand the impact of all that, what that's going to look like? So something that's really great in Turbocharged is I can bring that data right in if I wish. The other option is right down here, you can see I can have multiple data sets. So in this case, I'm not sure if I really want to do that calendar change. So I can actually create a new data set and pull it into this data set. So let me go ahead and show you how that looks. Okay, so I just need to ask it to go talk to P6 again, and I can pull that in. And now I've got my calendar 6 day a week instead of 5 day a week pulled in. Now, of course, I did it on all the activities except design. I had a filter on that. And I can see that this looks like I've got quite a few months saved, as you would expect. Now, one thing that you can do really easily is switch between those two data sets. So it's really wonderful to be able to look at the two on their own if that's what I want to do, or even more interesting could be to overlay them. So I can go ahead and choose my data set, and I can go back into my options. And mostly all the controls are sitting in here, so it's quite easy to learn. So I want to actually turn on both data sets, and I may want to just offset it a bit so I can see them. Okay, so that's moving it. And I may want to make my shrunk up time frame, the 6 day a week calendar, a little bit more opaque, so I can see it as a comparison and not the main feature to the option that I'm taking a peek at. Okay, so now I can look at the two together, and I can obviously see by the shapes and whatnot kind of what's happened here. Now, why would I want to do that? Well, I might want to take a look at whether I'm going to make the job site to condense, to compact it with workers, things of that nature, to see whether this 6 day a week even makes any sense. Okay, so this is a great feature of Turbocharged that is not easy to do whatsoever with a Gantt chart, is to really understand the modeling of the safety of your job site and the time frames by location, obviously. Now, another thing I may want to do here is I may not want to leave all of these tasks on the screen as I'm doing this compare, because it is a little bit overwhelming right now. So I can easily turn some of these layers off, some of these pieces of work off. And again, the thing that works very well, it turns off both data sets, so it declutters the screen so I can understand it better. In doing that, I can also zoom in if need be. So let's say there's a certain area I want to focus on and understand better. I can zoom in. And of course, at the same time, I can zoom back out. Okay, so very easy to try and focus in on things that the team is asking about and whatnot. Okay, that's one very quick example of something that we do a lot of when we're trying to model what-if scenarios in P6, and something that I think Turbocharged does very, very well. The thing that's nice is I can easily change my schedule. I can pull in different versions, very, very flexible, and then save the versions, and I've got them to refer back to. Now, another example that I wanted to look at, transmission line. So what I wanted to show you is how easy it is to work in P6, rework some logic, rework durations, look at resource capacity and requirements, and pull that back and forth into Turbocharged. Okay, so I'm going to use another example, and I'll go ahead and get out of this one. If I wish, I can certainly save it. If not, I can just go ahead and go into a brand new chart and not save the one that I was working in. Okay, so it saves it out to different libraries, just as you saw me navigate and pop one open. So very flexible to have multiple versions and multiple charts and data sets that you're working with. Okay, so I've got Turbocharged ready. Let's go look at another project, just another example of the types of things that Turbocharged makes so easy. And it's another relatively small project in terms of activities. It's a transmission line. So I've opened it up, and I can go ahead and take a look at any number of layouts, but I'll go ahead and start with the standard, typical WBS layout, and I'll just go ahead and hide a few of the non-required WBS layers. Okay, so let's kind of get the lay of the land of what this is. So also very similar to the last one in terms of having some engineering. I also have procurement. I've got some key milestones for my project. In this example, I've asked the computer not to bother sending those into Turbocharged. Okay? Now, I certainly could if I wish, or I don't have to. That's another thing that's really great, is I can really pick and choose the things that I want to focus on in my Turbocharged examples. Okay, so in here, same sort of thing. I've got some activities that are going to go in and some that aren't. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the scopes of work, the work types that I do want to have go into Turbocharged so I can focus on them. So what I can see here is the project team has put together that we're going to need some camps to be built. Once we get the camps set up, we're going to move into clearing the site, putting some foundations in, getting some transmission line towers stood up, string up the towers, and so on. Okay, so I've got a filter on here, and of course, just like you all always do in P6, you can focus in. What's missing, though, unfortunately, again, is the visual of where the work is going to take place. Now, another thing that's always interesting is for us to be focusing on what crews, what resources are going to be undertaking the work. So not only do we want to understand congestion and time frames, we also want to understand resource availability. So with P6, that's something you do want to be looking at. So I can see here that I've got some crews that will be putting these camps together on this large job site, and it looks like I've probably got more camps going up than I have crews to do that. Okay, so I probably have something that I need to understand a little bit better to try and deal with this resource over allocation. So let's go ahead and pull this project into Turbocharged so we can understand not only the work, but where that work is going to take place. And let's try and understand if Turbocharged is going to help me figure out where that work should be done and maybe some prioritization. Okay, so I pulled it in, and again, a bit hard to understand until I overlay my templating. And I've got some shape libraries that I want to work with. They can be the same ones, or they don't have to be. So in this example, I'm actually going to go and grab a different shape library. Okay, so this works really well. With each client, there may be obviously different requirements, so you can model it, color code it the way the team understands, and then just grab it very, very easily for those projects. Again, I need to get that chart. I need to get my, my graphic up there so I can see exactly where the work is going to take place, and just have the image right there readily available, and you can bring it on in. Okay, so a little different visual, of course, in this case. This is essentially the different geography that we're going to run the transmission line through. And off I go. try to understand what we're looking at in this visual. So we've got, again, different scopes of work. In this case, we've got our camps. These are the camps going in. Again, I can see that right here. Each one, I can see more details by clicking into. So we've got the camps going in. Of course, then we've got some of the civil works, the foundations, the clearing, of course, that needs to take place. For each one of these, I may want to focus in very explicitly. Again, I showed you how you can zoom. The other option is to actually ask the chart to just show me a portion of the schedule. So I don't necessarily have to look at the whole schedule in one shot, as I'm doing here. I can certainly do a filter on the time frame as well. So it can just zoom right in on that, which is really, really handy because now I can see just the first year of the project. Now in looking at that, this is a bit hard to really see whether I've got some congestion issues. So once again, I can certainly ask for a little bit more granularity on my time scale because I've zoomed in just to the first year. Okay, so I can go ahead and do that. So that gives me a little bit better granularity so I can see whether I've got any busts or problems that I'd want to address. Okay, so very easy to do that. Now, when I'm taking a look at my camps as an example, because they're, of course, the first thing that I need to get in place over this geography that might be quite remote, in which case it's a camp project and I cannot staff from a local major city or town. So I've got my camps going in. It looks like to me like some of these may not necessarily be quite bang on in the right order, or perhaps I can look at handling that resource over allocation a little bit by rearranging some of these. So Camp 3 obviously is where it needs to be. This Camp 5 looks like it could possibly come a little later. This one for sure, Camp 6, I don't see any immediate work in the vicinity. It's conceivable that we're sourcing from here or sourcing from this camp. So you need to understand some of the logistics there, but it does look like I could certainly rearrange some of the timing on this. This one as well, so which camp is this? This looks like camp number 4. Camp number 4 also conceivably could be put in a little bit later. Okay, so this is how nice Turbocharged makes this. You know, now I can start to understand this a little bit better. And I could certainly go back to my schedule and see whether perhaps putting some logic on these might make some sense here, right? So we can do that. So let me go ahead and do that as an example. So I've got my Camp 3, which was the first one on the left. And we said that we could possibly slide Camp 5 and 6 down a little bit, or down, or in Gantt chart terminology, to the right, so a little later. So we can certainly look at doing some logic, which is the example I'm going to do, and we can see whether that helps us with our overload. We certainly could level as well, so that's always a great option in P6. But in my example, I'll just keep it simple, and I'll do some logic tying on it. Okay, so as expected, that's bumping some of these out. And what we want to see is, what does that do to the chart? So very simple to work the two tools together. There's a hotkey Control R, or we can resync it. And as expected, this is going to move. I could have saved it and overlaid it as well. So all sorts of great features to see how this can come together. So here's an example. You saw those slide down. I talked about Camp 4. Camp 4 slid, maybe too much. And then you can just keep reworking it. Okay. So really, really wonderful tool to help you visualize what some of the discussions that you're doing in your meetings really, really will look like out in the field. So I gave you some simple examples. There's some more obviously we can do. Let me go ahead and do one more, very simple one. You know, conceivably we can rearrange how we're going to work this camp deployment to try and perhaps reduce the time frame. Okay, we already did an example where we had the team work 6 days a week. Certainly that's always an option. The other option might be to rework the logistics or possibly have more team members work on this so that we can get the camps put together quicker. So I'm just going to change the durations just as an example again, and you'll see what that looks like. Okay, so I can certainly refresh and get Turbocharged to read that, and as expected you start to see these change as well. So wonderful tool to work with back and forth ongoing as you're building out P6. Now of course I haven't quite solved my overloads here, and there's obviously a bit more work that I need to do to get that under my peak demand or peak availability. But this gives you I think the idea of how easy it is to work with these two tools together on an ongoing basis to understand where your schedule is going to come out. Let me go ahead and do another example, and then we'll leave it at that, and we can come back and go through some questions. So I wanted to just open an example that's already built, and this example is a tunnel project. And this tunnel project is interesting because we've got, not only are we looking at baselines and things like that in the previous examples, but in this one, I've actually got a risk overlay. So let me go ahead and give you the idea of how that can work for you. So I'll go ahead and open up a pre-existing version that I've saved, and I won't worry about keeping what I've just done here. So here's an example that's already been built out. We've probably been discussing the work scope and how we're going to have it all come together in our various meetings. And in this case, I can overlay some risk analysis with the current schedule or current game plan. So typically when you're looking at risk analysis, you're looking at different P90, P50, different comfort levels that your team has in terms of how much risk they want to accept on the project or they're willing to accept on the project. The idea here is we're overlaying the standard, so where we're at right now, with our risk analysis and our certainty of 90%. So we can see that quite a few of the activities are off by a good few months. Of course, we can zoom in to that in more detail and try and understand the specifics. And so this is a great way to really communicate where the real risks exist. So that can of course be done through the risk analysis tool and brought back in, and then you can work with it in a nice visual tool that the whole team can understand. In this example, I've got a few other things going on that are really handy inside of Turbocharged. So we've got the ability to drop down different highlighters and different notes, which is really key for communicating why something might be, as in this example, having a little dip in performance. So what we're seeing here is we're going along at a good rate, and there's some dips. And in this case, there's a reason for that. And we're expecting some poor soils in this area, which is going to slow down some of the work. So again, very, very nice, easy way to communicate that to someone who may not be all that familiar, and they can quite understand that. And in this case, it looks like we're working underneath, we're tunneling underneath some water, so a river or a lake or whatnot. Okay, so really easy to communicate that, much, much easier than a Gantt chart ever will be. And then, you know, there may be things like some of the things that we have here in Canada. We can't move heavy equipment on the roads when we're coming out of winter, when the roads are starting to go through the thaw cycle. Okay, so that could be another very interesting type of thing that you can model to explain why there could be gaps in your calendar. You want to show those sorts of things and explain that to the team. So wonderful tool, simple to use, very, very graphical, obviously, and graphics or pictures are worth gold in our business, literally. If you can get your team to the right place at the right time, it's key to saving money and keeping the schedule progressing. Another example I'd like to just talk about, and on our next demo and in our next sessions, we will actually show it live, is it's also really interesting to overlay the plan in black here with the progress. So as you start updating, let's see how we're doing. And what we don't want to see is what we're seeing in this example, where our progress is slowing down. So when you start to see your lines with a lesser curve or a lesser slope, it means we're not quite getting the productivity that we wanted. Okay, so very, very visual here. And you can start to see that things are not going well. Not only that, you can start to see that we're probably going to start to have some site problems as well, site congestion. So this really helps the team focus, in this case, on some problems that are going on and give you a chance to get in front of them much, much sooner. It's not always easy to see what's going to be happening 2 months down the road. So you can start to predict this much sooner with a tool like Turbocharged. Another one on here that I touched on slightly but is very, very clear here. We've got some clashes as well. So in this case, we've got 3 crews trying to launch off the same starting point, which may be all right or it may not be all right. Okay, and in this case, it's a crawl space. So more than likely, we've got a bit of a miss on our date timeline for these crews. Okay, these are things that are not very easy to pick up on in P6, especially when you've got lots and lots of pages to pilfer through. It's so much easier with Turbocharged. So let's just touch on a case study. So this case study is one that the Turbocharged fellows, so Santosh, worked with this team on some of their pre-bid work. They were trying to understand how to effectively work on this huge bridge works and road works in the middle of not snow, as in Canada, but the jungle in Bolivia. So very difficult working conditions, obviously, lots of things to consider, obviously also with things like weather and whatnot. So to be able to clearly understand where the work is going to take place, where some of these major bridge works need to take place, and make sure that this is actually achievable with the special requirements in working in the jungle, huge benefit to the team to make sure that they were able to deliver the project effectively. Something that you really just cannot get, not only in P6, but no Gantt charting tool really could do this kind of visual for you. Okay, now the return on investment. Well, it's to me it's very, very obvious. Now Turbocharged is a very new tool, so we may not have too many words from the clients as of yet. We have several, and they're coming. But the key here is the critical path. It's so much easier to follow, so much easier to manage and monitor where we need to be working, and of course the things that are going to bite us if we don't get the work done on time. Being able to model things like migratory paths, and we in Canada, and I think in your neck of the woods, have so many of these. We've got elk, we've got caribou, we've got owls, we've got birds. We've got so many different things to model that are just so difficult to see simply in a Gantt chart. Restrictions on access. I mentioned the road bans that we have to deal with, different weather patterns and timelines where weather will affect your ability to perform work, like typhoons, rainy seasons with flooding. Those are all things you can model much easier. Safety. Safety, of course, no matter where you are in the world, is a huge concern. And things that affect safety we can model very, very well in Turbocharged. Congested work areas, multiple crews, things that are much, much easier to see in a visual tool than you can see in a Gantt. Making sure that you're adhering to all of those requirements and that the whole team is understanding those, with the ability to drop down those curtains with the comments. Huge benefits, and again, much, much easier to do than we could ever achieve in a Gantt chart. Okay, so hopefully that was a nice overview of the tool. These were food for thought examples. Of course, there's so many more examples. One I think I actually forgot was that we can also model the buildings. So as we're looking at the questions that are coming through, I'll go ahead and just pop that open because I did forget to open up a building example, just so you realize it's not just linear, but we can also do vertical examples as well. So I've got one right here. Okay, so I think Shannon's throwing some questions our way, so we can go ahead and take a look at those. Okay, so there's the example of a building structure. Again, very nice modeling of where the crews need to be. You can overlay some interim deliveries. So in this example, I've got the retail needs to be done by this date, and we can clearly see it's not going to be. So this would be a schedule in progress that needs to be reworked or renegotiated when the retail space would need to be delivered. Okay, so the first question was, how hard is it to learn Turbocharged? So that's a good question. It's a very easy tool to learn, literally with just a few hours of coaching and practicing and modeling. You'll be very comfortable at working with the tool. The thing that may take you a little longer is to formulate some of your standards across your company and across your projects. And really that is not that much longer at all. So the kinds of work that you're going to want to color code and model, it would be great to get some standards across the board. That makes it so much easier for the team to know what they're looking at project after project. Okay, so that was the first question. The second question that's come through, right, so what makes Turbocharged different to some of the other tools on the market? This person's asked specifically about Telos. So I think the key difference here really is that Turbocharged has been designed to take data from other sources very quickly, as you saw, and allow you to use it and model it graphically, visually in Turbo. I think some of the other tools, and I'm not professing to be an expert on any of them, would really be that some of them are designed to really be the scheduling tool. So that's got its pros and cons. So I think the real con there is that it means you have to train people up on a whole other scheduling system. And that is not great. It's much better to have a tool that you use day to day and just use visuals in a separate tool. So I think the key is Turbo is much easier to use and very flexible, and we can grab data from many different systems regardless of what the team is using for a scheduling tool. I showed P6, but you can even use Excel if you want. Okay, and it ties up with Safran and Microsoft Project as well. So I think that makes it so flexible, much easier to use, and I think really worth its weight in gold. The price is very, very small compared to the benefits you're going to gain even in the first month of using it. Okay, I think those are the main questions right now. And pretty common with Turbocharged that there aren't too many questions because I think the benefits are pretty obvious. So I want to thank you for spending the last hour with us. Emerald Associates, of course, is a full-service platinum partner with Oracle. Turbocharged is just one of the many tools in our toolkit. And our key focus is to make sure you've got everything you need to make your projects a success, whether it's cloud, provisioning, tools, training, integration. We want to be your partner of choice to help you make all that a success. And of course, that's why we're teaming up with Santosh and Russell to bring you Turbocharged. If you do want to ask any more questions or want to understand more about pricing, feel free to contact me. There's my direct information. And of course, do not hesitate to go to Turbocharged's website because you can certainly start with a free trial. It's a 14-day trial to test it out. And if you need any help or coaching, just reach out and we'll be happy to help get you going. Now, I do have Santosh with me, so if anyone, if you had anything else you wanted to add, Santosh, it's conceivable, it's very conceivable that I forgot to highlight some important pieces. So, Shannon, if you want to unmute Santosh, that'd be great. And
hello, everyone.
What did I forget? I'm sure I forgot plenty of things.
No, Nicole, you did a wonderful job.
Okay, good. So again, team, feel free to reach out to Santosh or myself, and let's make sure that your projects are a success. And Turbocharged is a great addition to that toolkit.
Yep. I mean, the only other comment I'd make, Nicole, is that we're more than happy to help any potential users if they have any questions on how to best optimize Turbocharged for their projects. So we're here to help.
Okay, great. Thanks, Santosh. Okay, wonderful. So I think we'll leave it at that for now. And the game plan is to make the recording available for those who are able to attend. So that will be another resource to help you talk to your team about looking at Turbocharged as part of your toolkit. Thanks very much. And we'll sign off now. Thank you.